You've seen it your entire life. Every morning, without fail, it shows up right on time. That slow, impossible burn crawling up from the edge of the world, painting the sky in colors that don't belong to the night. You've watched it from car windows, from rooftops, from the side of a highway where you pulled over just because it was too beautiful to drive past. You know exactly what it looks like. You know exactly what it is. It's the sun, rising, over the horizon, just like it always does. And that knowledge is so deep, so woven into the way you experience every single morning, that questioning it feels almost offensive. But here's the number that's going to ruin it. When you watch that sunrise, when you see that first sliver of light break over the horizon, the sun is already 9 minutes and 20 seconds below it. Not metaphorically, not approximately, geometrically, physically, measurably below the horizon. What you're seeing isn't there. It hasn't been there for over 9 minutes.
Because it doesn't. The question is, what are you actually looking at? And the answer to that question is going to change the way you see every single morning for the rest of your life. Your first instinct is probably the right one. Light travels in straight lines. Everyone knows that. You learned it in school. You've seen it in every ray of sunshine cutting through a dusty room, every laser pointer, every shadow with a clean, sharp edge. The sun is 93 million miles away. Light leaves its surface, travels in a perfectly straight line across that entire distance, and hits your eye exactly where the source is. You're not seeing a ghost, you're seeing the real thing, just slightly delayed. 8 minutes and 20 seconds, to be exact. That's how long it takes light to cross from the sun to your eyes. So yes, you're watching the past. You're always watching the sun as it was 8 minutes ago, not as it is right now. That's slightly unsettling, sure, but it doesn't explain the extra minute, because the number wasn't 8 minutes and 20 seconds. It was 9 minutes and 20 seconds. There's a full extra minute in there, a minute that has nothing to do with the speed of light and everything to do with something much closer to home. So maybe it's the atmosphere. You've seen a straw in a glass of water. You know it looks broken, bent at the surface, and you know that's just refraction. Light bending as it passes from one medium into another. The atmosphere does the same thing. It's not empty space. It has density, layers, pressure. Light from the sun hits the outer edge of the atmosphere and bends, like it always does when it moves from one medium into another. So the image of the sun gets nudged upward slightly. You see it a little higher than it really is. Simple optics. Solved. Except, how much does it bend? That's the question you need to sit with for a second. Because the atmosphere doesn't nudge the sun's image up by a fraction of a degree, or by some small invisible amount that you'd never notice. 0.53 degrees. Write that down. 0.53 degrees. Now look up the angular diameter of the sun as seen from Earth. 0.53 degrees. The atmosphere bends the sun's image upward by exactly 1 full solar diameter. Which means that when you see the bottom of the sun just touching the horizon at sunrise, that image, the entire disk, every pixel of it, is geometrically located below the horizon. The sun you see is not above the horizon. It was never above the horizon. You don't have a third answer. You've run through straight line light, doesn't explain the extra minute. You've run through atmospheric bending, and it made things worse, not better. The sun you watch rising every morning is a displaced image of something that isn't there. You've watched it your entire life, and nobody told you. Here's what you're actually seeing. A mirage, not a metaphor.
A real, measurable, physically documented atmospheric mirage. The same category of phenomenon that makes you see water on a hot highway. The same family of effects that makes distant ships appear to float above the ocean surface. The sunrise is a mirage. Every sunrise in human history has been a mirage. Every painting Turner made of a dawn sky, every photograph of the sun breaking over the ocean, every morning your grandmother watched the light come up over the fields, every ancient culture that built temples aligned to the rising sun, all of them were watching a displaced image of a star that wasn't where they thought it was. That's not a small thing to sit with. Now here's how it actually works, and it's simpler than you think. Earth's atmosphere isn't uniform, it's a gradient. The air at sea level is dense, compressed by the weight of everything above it. As you go higher, it thins out. Less pressure, less density, fewer molecules per cubic meter.
Light doesn't care about empty space, but it does care about density. When light moves from a less dense medium into a denser one, it bends toward the denser medium. It slows down slightly, and that slowdown curves its path. So as sunlight enters Earth's atmosphere from the vacuum of space, traveling at an angle toward the horizon, it's moving from near vacuum into increasingly dense air. Layer by layer, it keeps bending. Not once, like a straw in a glass, continuously, the whole way down. By the time that light reaches your eye at the horizon, its path has been curved upward enough to lift the entire image of the sun above where the sun geometrically sits. You see it above the horizon. It is below it. That's not a trick. That's physics. Let's slow this down even further, because what's happening in that atmosphere is more precise than it sounds. Imagine slicing Earth's atmosphere into thousands of horizontal layers, like the pages of a book stacked on top of each other.
Each layer has a slightly different density than the one above it and the one below it. Every time light crosses from one layer into the next, from slightly thinner air into slightly denser air, it bends, just a little, a fraction of a degree. But those fractions add up. 53 degrees we talked about, one full solar diameter. The math isn't approximate, it's calculable, predictable, measurable. Astronomers account for it every single time they track the position of any object near the horizon. It's called atmospheric refraction, and it's been precisely quantified since the 17th century. You just never heard about it in the context of your morning coffee. Now here's where it gets tactile, where you can actually feel this same mechanism in your own hands. Fill a glass with water, put a straw in it, look at it from the side. The straw looks broken, bent at the surface. The part underwater appears shifted from the part above. That's the same physics. Light moving from water into air, changing speed, bending its path. The image of the straw gets displaced from where the straw actually is. Your atmosphere does this to the entire sun. 4 million kilometer-wide ball of plasma displaced like a straw in a glass of water, every single morning and every single evening, on a scale so large and so consistent that every human civilization assumed it was simply the sun moving. It wasn't moving. The light was bending. And the deeper you go into this, the stranger it gets. Because this effect isn't fixed. It depends entirely on atmospheric conditions, temperature, pressure, humidity, the density gradient on any particular morning. On cold mornings with a sharp temperature inversion near the ground, refraction gets stronger. The sun's image can appear to flatten, stretch, or even split into multiple stacked disks as different layers bend the light by different amounts. You've probably seen this without knowing what it was, a sunrise where the sun looked squashed into an oval, or where a second faint disk appeared just above the first. That wasn't a camera artifact. That was your atmosphere doing something extraordinary with light. Now push this further. Take Venus. Venus has an atmosphere nearly 90 times denser than Earth's, a crushing blanket of carbon dioxide pressing down at 92 atmospheres of pressure. On Venus, atmospheric refraction is so extreme that light bends in a complete arc around the entire planet, which means that if you stood on the surface of Venus and looked at the horizon, you wouldn't just see a displaced image of the sun. You would theoretically be able to see the back of your own head. The light from you would travel forward, bend around the planet, and come back. That's not science fiction. That's the same mechanism as your sunrise, scaled up to a different atmosphere. And what's the fundamental force underneath all of this?
Electromagnetism. Every time light slows down in a denser medium, every time it bends, what's actually happening is that the photons are interacting with the electron clouds of the molecules in that medium. The electromagnetic fields of those electrons respond to the oscillating electromagnetic field of the incoming light. The interaction slows the photon's effective speed through the medium.
53-degree displacement of an entire star. Your sunrise is a demonstration of quantum electrodynamics, happening every morning, for free, right in front of your face. Now, here's the part that should make you stop completely. Because this refraction, this bending of light through a gradient medium, isn't only happening in the atmosphere above you, it's happening inside you, right now. Your eye has a lens. That lens is a gradient refractive medium, denser at the center than at the edges, designed by evolution to bend incoming light and focus it onto your retina. Every image you have ever seen in your entire life has been a bent, rerouted, optically displaced version of the thing in front of you. You have never seen anything directly, not once. Not the face of someone you love, not your own hands, not a single sunrise, not a single sunset, not a single moment of your entire visual life. Every image was light that got bent, slowed, redirected, reconstructed by your brain from a signal that had already been displaced from its source. You thought you were watching the world. You were watching the world's light. And those are not the same thing. Physics has been quietly telling you this every single morning. The displaced sun at the horizon wasn't just an interesting optical effect. It was a demonstration, the most visible, most dramatic, most daily demonstration available, that perception and reality have never been identical. The gap between where something is and where you see it isn't a malfunction. It's the structure of how seeing works at all. And once you understand that, something shifts. Not just about sunrises, about everything you think you're looking at. Richard Feynman spent his entire life sitting inside that gap, the space between what appears to be true and what is actually happening, and he said something that has stayed with me since the first time I read it. He wasn't talking about sunrises when he said that, but he could have been. Because you have been watching a mirage every morning of your life, with total confidence, with complete certainty, with the unshakable conviction that you were watching something real, exactly where you saw it. And you were wrong. Not because you're careless. Not because you're uninformed. But because the atmosphere between you and the sun is doing something so precise, so consistent, so perfectly calibrated, that it produces the same displacement every single morning without fail, and nothing in your experience ever gave you a reason to question it. Go outside tomorrow morning. Watch the sun come up. Watch that first sliver of light break over the horizon, the colors spreading across the sky, the warmth hitting your face. And know, really know, in the way that physics lets you know things, that what you're seeing is a ghost. A displaced image of a star that's still below the horizon, its light bent upward through 60 miles of atmosphere, curved by the electromagnetic interaction of billions of photons with billions of electron clouds, arriving at your bent, refractive, reconstructing eye, and being assembled by your brain into the most beautiful mirage in the history of human experience. You've watched it your whole life.
Now you finally know what you were looking at. If this changed the way you see your mornings, and I genuinely hope it did, share it with one person who watches sunrises and has never once questioned them. They deserve to know what they're really seeing.